Hello and welcome to Oscilloscope. My name's Ed Wright and it is a real pleasure to be joined once again by Julie Upmeyer, who's co-hosting with me this evening. So yeah, welcome back, Julie.
Glad to be here. Thanks.
Oh, thank you very, very much for agreeing to join us again, which is always quite nice because it means we can't be that bad and terrifying. Yeah, I mean, on a very connected note, I completely understand that you are coming off the back of an amazing project in Anglesey, whereby quite a few of us made noise and things for an incredibly long time, and half the people on this stream not had enough sleep, it seems. So, yeah, do you want to tell us about what's been going on with that? Because
sure, yeah, we're all a little disjointed, coming from another time frame. So for 24 hours, we invited 24 different sound artists, creatives working with sound to the house. Some people camped all night, some people came and left, and each artist was invited to play with the house for an hour each. So we had kind of a bank of pre-recorded sounds that they could play on the mixing desk. They could create any sort of sounds with the walls, with the staircase, with the birds, with the surrounding sounds. And they could manipulate that with any gear or kit that they wanted to bring, or they could just play with the microphones. We had 10 different microphones distributed throughout the ground floor and the first floor. So it was kind of a 24-hour manipulated field recording called Sounds for an Empty House. So that was the first part, the 24 hours with 24 artists. And we're processing all of those sounds. We were able to record 8 tracks from each artist's hour. And it will be put out there as a gift and a challenge to the world for part 2. So it's going to be an open call to anyone who's interested to work with sound and engage with this huge body of sounds to compose a new piece of work. So we're collaborating with 4 different alternative Welsh music labels, and we'll be publishing an online digital album with different selections of the tracks that we get. So we're just about to launch that. We're still desperately working as a team in now dispersed locations to crank and crunch all that data and put it out there. But it'll be up hopefully by the end of the week, and we launch part 2. So it was really a lot of fun, and it was really magic. There's not too many times in your life where you're honestly transported into another realm with an amazing group of people, and the Oscilloscope crew was vital to providing that energy and the technical support and the last minute Ed help for several people, and Charles was the powerhouse between hooking everything up, and all 3 of them were camped out in our north garden. All of their toys plus the telescope, and it was an absolutely good fun weekend.
It was a really nice weekend, and thank you to all of the other people involved with that as well. It was really, really great. Looking forward though as well for this evening, because we have work by 6 artists, which really does sort of span the gamut of kind of sound art and music and all of those things, which is really quite cool. For anybody who's not come across this as an event before, basically what we tend to do is have some sound art, play it, chat to the composer or artist after that, and have a few of those. If you have got any questions or comments or whatnot, please do stick them in the chat or the comments and those sorts of things, and Rob, who's currently hiding in the background somewhere, can stick them on there and we can put them to people as we are chatting to them. So whether it's simply saying something nice or asking a kind of in-depth technical question, go for it, because it's all part of the great fun of these things. So without further ado, I think, because it's very easy to start rambling, we have a piece by Gianni Bencic, who is currently based over in Lima, of all places, which is really exciting to be able to have in North Wales, essentially where we are. And without further ado, we have a piece by him and performed by him, which is Dim Redux, or Redux, depending on how you pronounce it. Gianni. Thank you very, very much, and welcome, Gianni. What a great piece.
Thank you.
Yeah, Julie, do you want to ask anything first, or shall I? Or
Yeah, I'll go. I'm quite interested in the visualization of sound, so I was completely distracted by the the colored bars for the first section of it, trying to figure out what color was what sound and how your finger was controlling it. So then I just closed my eyes for a while, and then got dizzy for 30 seconds, and then I just had this feeling that you were exploring sounds that were just beyond the range of human hearing, that actually when there was a breakout, that it was going beyond my highest sounds I could hear, and then the other ones, it was just going below my other. So I felt like I was diving into a world with a sonic environment that was just beyond my hearing, and I really enjoyed being immersed in that.
Thank you very much. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you
it's a pleasure.
letting me participate. It's always nice to be able to bring my little weird noises somewhere new. And yeah, there were definitely some supersonic and subsonic spaces. I try to filter them. I put a little shelf on each end, but it's not like a brick wall thing that completely cuts it. And I don't have complete control over what's happening. So some very high frequencies pop up, and I have to see what to do with them. Maybe I don't hear them all. I think my ear also stops at like 13K, like 13 kilohertz. So there might be a lot more beyond, but you can feel them, right? Like you feel that change from very high to like impossibly human hearing. And yeah, the color bars are like something, it brings something to the program that is beyond just me moving my finger around on a blank screen and a blank computer screen. I think some people have liked the color bars. Max does, the program does have some nice colors. But they're not directly mapped to anything like the sounds. They're mapped to the general parameters. They're not like each sound is one of those. They're more like one of them represents the density of one of the particle engines, and more like very specific stuff. They're not like all the bars. Like I could add more bars and it would be maybe prettier, but yeah, it's like very specific stuff that I sometimes need to see. Not all the times, just like sometimes, and it adds something for people who could see it also.
Yeah. I mean,
Yep.
you mentioned earlier that you said you don't have complete control all the time over what it's doing. But also then you mentioned about having these bars that are representing density of particle systems. I mean, what are you actually doing and what are you controlling and how composed is this, or how much you riding this wave of what the system's doing and curating that?
Yeah, so well, it all starts with some different synth engines that are behind it. Right now, it is all programmed on Max MSP. It used to be like some parts of it used to be an older program that I wrote on Python, but it was like so complicated that I gave up and translated it all to Max.
Yeah.
Because Max is pretty and you just have these little boxes and it does everything by itself. And now it is some engines. There is like a typical granular system, and there are two other types of like microsound particle stuff. One that is more like a sine-based FM thing, and one that is more like a pulsar thing that convolutes.
Yeah, convolutes.
That's a word I've never said out loud. And yeah, these engines, but they don't all work at the same time. I have these options to control sometimes, and they all are connected to this iPad, which I'm using. But the mapping of the iPad is managed by machine learning, by a neural network, a type of neural network that is called a self-organizing map, which does the mapping previously, but most of the training is done with pseudo random sources. So I don't have knowledge of what the mapping is before I sit down in front of it. So each time I train the program, it is mostly different. There are some things that will remain the same, but there is a lot of randomness going from point to point. So this is something that I enjoy when playing, using this kind of chaotic systems where you, while you're playing, you're kind of learning what is going to happen. So if I move somewhere, I know, oh no, that sounds terrible. And then I move somewhere else and I'm like, oh yeah, this gesture is kind of nice. So when I'm playing, I'm learning every time what is going to happen, what is happening. And also I don't map the exact synths that will be sounding. I have them like options, and at the moment I turn some of them on. Like we just heard 3 different things right now, but there are 6 things behind. So there are lots of possibilities, and that is fun for me when playing.
I like the idea that you are like learning and teaching from each other throughout this process.
Yeah. It's like what is trendy right now. Like all this machine learning stuff really opens up possibilities.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I mean, is that learning on a very basic level, whereby it's kind of, is this where your finger is, or is this learning the gestures that you're making over time as well?
Well, it learns before I play.
Yeah. Sorry. Yes. Yeah.
Like,
but is that then just simply a fixed thing, or is this a time-based thing as well? Or
it is like a very the idea is dimensional reduction. So you have all the parameters from all the engines that are down mixed into this XY grid. That's what the self-organizing map does. And what I did was just using an iPad to control it. And what it's very nice, because when you go from one point to the next, because there has been a process of learning, and there is some like topological integrity within that training, it is not like a harsh change from one state to another. There is like some kind of curve, like there is morphing between sounds, and that is like pleasing to my ears. It is easier than just going like, yeah, it's all random and there is nothing else. I have not yet tried to do like real time learning, because I don't know, I'm afraid my computer will just burn and die. Right now, with all the stuff it has inside is going like kind of hot already.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the next step. Maybe for my next computer, I'll try.
Wow. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just looking at some of the comments that have come through. Glyn Roberts there, excellent noise, which I think is a very apt summing up of that, you know.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, you know, I think that's probably fairly accurate on both words, really, in a sense. Oh, okay, yeah, Soundlands Jumry. Okay, cool. That's really nice.
I am definitely, as you can tell, influenced by noise music as well as normal electronic music. So yeah, noise is very much part of my thing.
Yeah, it's really interesting just hearing different people's kind of language in the way that they express themselves, you know, and the way that they create sort of sound and music and all those sorts of things. And actually really quite intriguing that, I mean, you're clearly talking about it as music, whereas quite a lot of people out there would say, yeah, it is noise and that's, but I don't know, it seems like you almost don't see that distinction there, which is quite interesting.
Yeah, you know, it happens a lot when you know, when you try showing them even someone that is like a established composer, like I don't know, Stockhausen or Tsunakis, to someone that isn't familiar with that, they just go like, no, that's noise, man. That's not music. I cannot dance to that. It has no beat. It has no melody. But it's just different context. I mean, in the case, like I live in Peru, and here the electronic music scene and the new music scene are very blended with the very experimental underground noise scene. Lima is a very noisy city. It is extremely chaotic. I don't know if you've seen the news lately. We're a chaotic country, and yeah, our music reflects that a lot. And because we're just now in the process of establishing a modern organized music industry, there is a lot of underground still, and the underground traditions in Lima are very noise oriented. So much of the music of my generation is also now directly influenced by experimental electronic noise music. And,
absolutely. Yeah. Don't establish a modern music industry. We're still trying to take ours apart. You know? But yeah, no, it's really, really intriguing. I mean, Julie, have you got anything else you want to say or ask before we wrap things up? Because I'm aware that time is running away with us.
No, I really enjoyed that. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thank you very much, Johnny. And you've got your links to stuff going along the bottom there. Are there any other links or anything you want to tell people about to go and see more of your work, or is it best to look there for you?
I usually post my stuff there.
Okay.
So yeah, those are my social links, my social media links. That's where you can find stuff. If you want to know more about my music or kind of weird noises that we make down here in Lima, it's down there.
Yeah, brilliant. So yeah, Johnny, thank you so much. That's been really great, and great to sort of meet you almost in person. You know.
Yeah, thank you, and it was great.
So great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very, very, very much, Gianni. Okay, so next up we have a track by Instant Places, which is the working name for Laura Kavanagh and Ian Bryce. And yeah, they're somewhere about in ether. I don't think they're quite in the studio in the wings at the moment. So hopefully by the time we've played it, they may well appear or indeed be hanging out in the comments somewhere. But yeah, so without further ado, I guess we will have Instant Places. That's an ace track. I really like it. Sadly, it appears that they're not able to be with us, but hopefully they'll be able to hang out in the comments, or indeed, if people have got any comments, we'll try and see if we can get hold of them to answer them afterwards. But yeah, Julie, what did you think? Did you enjoy that?
Yeah, I was trying to figure out their kind of dynamic. I mean, so much of our world the last year has been existing in these two boxes, and we've been trying to work with each other, collaborate with each other, socialize with each other, be creative with each other in these side-by-side boxes.
Absolutely.
And we've all forced ourselves into these little boxes, and just hearing those and never being sure what sounds were coming from what people and when and how, and if they were doing it at the same time or not doing it at the same time. And I just went on a cycle of thinking about like what happens when people listen to each other and when they don't listen to each other, when they try to be independent from one another, when they try to collaborate, when they try to work against each other. And it was just so interesting to hear how those sounds fit together, not always in a collaborative way at all.
Yeah.
And just kind of feel your own tension and calm come and go with the tension amongst those two performances that were put together and layered on top of each other.
Absolutely. I mean, I was quite sort of taken aback in a sense by it, in the fact that I know them as a duo. I mean, they came and did one of the early gigs in the Greenhouse years ago. And yeah, they're based over in Canada, and I know that they're a couple of people that work together and do a lot together. But that then kind of led me down this sort of winding road of kind of not knowing which sounds were coming from which people, and then this sort of weird feeling that was almost kind of the point, in that we were in this weird sort of synthesis of this crossover world, and it kind of seemed to fit with what some of the visuals were doing, in that it's sort of, you knew kind of sort of where it was coming from, but actually the fact that you didn't quite know almost felt like part of it, in that it wasn't just sort of trying to go, oh yes, we're trying to make a performance that looks like we're standing together and doing a thing. We know that you can't quite work this out, so actually let's build on that, which I found quite an intriguing thing, and seems to be a bit of an emerging thing that's come out of the sort of lockdown, and this sort of different dialogue of experiencing the world and culture. We've had to put a lot of suspension of disbelief, but I think that gives you a lot of space within that to play, which seems quite nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Even the body language of the framing, like they were turned away from each other, and then they were both away, and then the whole like Zoom virtual background screen like totally warped out, and then you just kind of saw a hairy arm like coming in and out, and the whole time you still have that like that back going the other way. When I think people, when they're on Zoom or in a meeting, you like overemphasize their like engagement with the screen and making sure you look like you're participating. And to just be able to like shirk that and just play with the idea of your rectangle was really refreshing.
Yeah, I mean, even to the point where if you framed the two videos, one of each of them, even if you put them the other way around, it would feel like a totally different piece.
Yeah, I was thinking that same thing. I was like, oh, they should put it the other way around. I was like, wait, they didn't. There's a reason for that.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's one of those ones that comes back to the assumption that if people are good and doing what they're doing, that therefore whatever is done for a reason. And then all of a sudden you're like, okay, what's going on? Why? And then, which seems like a very healthy way of looking at things. And just a really intriguing piece, I think. Hopefully they will appear and be able to, or not appear, but be able to join in the comments later. And I trust that they are sort of well, really, and that everything's all right. And there's bits of Canada at the minute that are all still quite severely under lockdown, and as do they appear to be, quite honestly.
Yeah.
So yeah. In which case, shall we dive on to the next track?
Let's do it.
Absolutely. So we have a track by Elliot Lopez entitled Ritual, which I think sums it up very, very nicely. He is going to be joining us afterwards. I believe his camera isn't working. So if you see a disembodied rectangle, we can pretend that this is all part of the artistic persona, but it isn't. So without further ado, great delight in introducing Elliot Lopez and Ritual. That's great. I assume we have Elliot appearing somewhere in the stream at any moment.
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, you are here. Oh, brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know why I expected a disembodied black box to be with you. First off, Elliot, please forgive me because I just realised looking at my notes that I'd done the very British thing of taking the last bit of a name as somebody's surname. So I believe you're Elliot Hernandez as people know you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
doesn't matter.
Okay, so 1,000 apologies for that before we get started. But yeah,
don't
thank you
worry.
for an amazing piece. You know, I really enjoyed that. Yeah, what I mean, it feels very much like that sort of acousmatic style of work. I mean, what particularly drew you to that? I mean, there's this, the idea of ritual which comes through quite clearly.
Yeah.
So what was in your mind as you composed it?
When I make this work, I want to recreate a dream that I had.
Yeah,
So this is a sonic exploration that combines daily sounds. I use the sounds in raw, so that can I transform or modify whatever I want. So yeah, it's like a dream that I had. It was like super dark, the dream that I had. So yeah, this is my sorry.
no.
Yeah, I kind of nervous, and this is my
Oh
first
no, it's
time
fine.
talking in a place like that in English. So yeah,
No, well, I mean, thank you for even trying. You know, yeah. So, I mean, are the sounds there sounds you've recorded, or are they library sounds, or how did you generate that material?
some of that I have that I record. Some others that the deep voice that you hear, the some noises, the bells, and other sounds. I make it with different plugins, well, with a different VSTs.
Yeah,
So another one, like maybe 5 or 6, I have it pre-recorded.
cool. Julie, do you want to ask anything? Or
Well, sorry. I just want to say thank you for giving me this opportunity to present and talk about my work.
oh, it's a pleasure. Yeah. Julie, you look like you're about to jump in and say something.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I kept getting. It was quite a fast-paced piece, but I experienced it as going very slowly, just because of the very isolated sounds forced you to focus on one sound, and then the next piece would kind of sneak up on you, and then all of a sudden you were at the next one. But then each individual sound was quite intense, so you were forced to constantly go from one to the other. And because each sound was so precise, you really had to focus on it. So I was brought through the piece at a very slow motion, rapid speed, if that makes sense. And I
Yeah.
really enjoyed the being able to at least try to identify the sounds. Some of them were very, very obvious, and other ones you almost thought you could place, and then the next one would start. So those references to past memories, to past lives, to things that you did yesterday, to things in your own dreams, all kind of got swirled around in this vortex and then shoved on to the next one. It was
Yeah,
really enjoyable. Thank you.
it's just what I want when the people listen this work. I want to create different images clustered with different sounds to make it more interesting to listen to. So yeah, that's what I want.
Oh, that's
You did
brilliant.
it. Well done.
Yay! Mission accomplished.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you're saying about making that for people to listen and that's what it's for. Are there any links to any more of your work that people can go and have a listen to?
Yeah, I have my SoundCloud account, but
Okay.
I don't have it right here. So
Okay.
I
No worries. As and
send
when you find the URL, if you want to stick it in the comments or things so that people can find it, or if you find it in the next however long, you can stick it in our chat on here, and hopefully Rob can pop it up along the bottom of the stream. Because it's a very interesting piece of work, and personally makes me kind of want to go and find more of what you've been doing. So yeah.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah,
Well, thank you.
I will send you by the chat.
Yeah. So yeah, send that through, and we shall send people your way and have a listen and enjoy. Thank you very, very much. We have
Thank
clap
you.
from Andrea's come through. So yeah, and Reverend Tate really enjoying the show,
Thanks.
and Mike P liking these sonic textures a lot, which seems very justified. So yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you very, very much for a great piece, and
Thank you.
thanks for taking the time out and having the confidence to come and do stuff in a completely different language, for which I can only applaud you. So yeah.
Okay.
So
thank you,
Elliot Hernandez. Thank you very, very much. Cool. Where are we? Okay. Next up, we have a piece called System Number 3, brackets, elaborations on pendulum music, by Ron Coulter, which I think for those of you who are into that sort of thing may have picked up on the sort of references to Steve Reich swinging microphones thing. And actually, I think is exactly that. So we will be joined by Ron in person and on screen afterwards. So that would be great. And yeah, without further ado, let's move on and enjoy System Number 3 by Ron Coulter. Yay! Thank you very, very much, and welcome, Ron.
Hi,
Great
Ed.
to see you.
Hey, Julie. Nice to be with you.
Thank you. So yeah, I mean, what came across from that was the fact that this is very obviously a kind of quite living, tactile, and planned piece, but that clearly from sort of the plans and the photos, that there's a lot of stuff going on that I feel like we kind of don't get because it's very much a sound-based piece and we don't see all of what's going on. But actually, I kind of like that in the fact that you then listen to it as sounds rather than just looking at something swinging. So can you actually unpack for people what was actually going on to create that as a set of noises?
Yeah, I can give it a shot.
Yeah, go for it.
I mean, the reference is obviously, as you mentioned, Reich's pendulum music, which, you know, you simply let the microphone start swinging and that process plays out and it ends. I always loved that piece. And
so for anybody who doesn't know, it's essentially having a microphone dangled over a speaker or an amplifier that then feeds back as it swings past. And
yeah, so you get this,
several of them. Yeah,
you generate this rhythmic material from two or more of those microphones swinging. And I always felt like that piece could have been like made into something sort of bigger or developed more, that idea, through interactivity with, you know, actually playing the microphones. So how this piece works is it starts exactly like the Reich piece, a microphone swinging, add the second microphone, and then that plays out for 30 seconds or so. And then the interactivity starts, because these are really small amplifiers and really light microphones. They stop really quickly. So you have to interact with that swinging microphone just to keep it going. And then there's adjustments on the volume levels, and there's a tone control knob that begins, and then manipulating the snare drum itself. So turning the snares on, sort of functioning as an acoustic filter to the microphone and the little speakers that are feeding back. And then there's also an interactivity with the two drums themselves. They start to pick up the sound from the other drum, and they start to come in and out of phase in terms of pitch. And then you can also manipulate the drum heads by where you touch them, changing how they're vibrating. And then it eventually gets back to the microphone swinging again, but with a lot more player interactivity, catching them, intentionally creating certain rhythmic patterns in the moment. So that's sort of the long-winded version of how that piece works in live performance.
That's really cool. Julie, yeah, you kind of look like you're about to ask something, so yeah, go for it.
No, I was enjoying the explanation, and I also enjoy the possibility of the sketches in the beginning, and just knowing, just even without any introduction or all, as soon as you enter the piece, you know that it's a physical experience. You know that there are actual objects interacting with each other, with space, with time. And it's this type of music that like was my entrance into all of experimental music, because it reminded me so much of my own like visual arts practice, when you would take like two materials or one material and one process and just like push it to the limit. Like, what is every single thing that this material can do with this process? And I love these physical like endurance pieces where you have one speaker and one microphone. You're like, we're going to do everything till the end and find every subtle little part of that process. Like, just, I was enjoying all of your details with like putting your finger on the snare or not, or stopping it. And then the interaction between two of those seemingly identical processes, but then because they were happening side by side, that they would influence each other, even though they should just be 2 times 1, it ends up being like 2 times 4 times 8.
Sure.
So it was really enjoyable to hear the variety and the density and the rhythm of naturally produced sounds, pushing those like seemingly simple materials to the very limit.
Yeah, that's awesome that you said that. That's like exactly like one of my driving motivations in composing is minimal materials, maximum outcome. And that really comes from being a percussionist and like not wanting to carry, truckloads of gear to play a show. So like this one's called system number 3 because there's a system 1 and 2, and the continuity is that they're all based around that setup of 2 snare drums, 1 or 2 snare drums, and then adding things to that in that kind of process. So small amounts of material and then trying to develop that as much as I can.
That's really cool. I mean,
I would just put that on loop in my studio and just listen to that all day. That's exactly what I like to have, because it just enters my brain and occupies the really distractible part of it, and then everything else can go.
Yeah. And just to reference like your first guest, Gianni, he was talking about like his piece being interactive with like that virtual instrument that he had designed. This is like the same concept, except it's objects, like things, whether it's actual musical instruments or like some junk found objects as well. But that idea of like having a solo performance vehicle that is feels like you're playing with another person. Like the objects are almost giving you information, giving you feedback, and things are developing like in real time in ways that are somewhat controlled and then also very unpredictable too, which is for me a lot more interesting than just kind of playing notes on a page as a solo performer and not getting any feedback, from another performer, from the material, from the instrument.
Absolutely. The other thing I was wondering about it as things were going through and we were listening to the piece as a sort of a sound recording. I mean, to what extent is the way that that's been recorded a part of how you view that work? Because I mean, I'm sure as a percussionist, you're really probably far more well aware than I am with things like sort of phase differences on the sides of snare drums, top and bottom, all of those kind of mic techniques that build into that sort of thing. And then how do you record the feedback? Do you record it from that particular microphone that's causing it and all those sort of things? I mean, how much of that was a kind of conscious choice when making a sound recording of it? And how much difference does that actually make, do you think?
I think a lot. Like it, particularly with this piece, like every iteration in live performance is going to be completely unique. Like it's going to be recognizable performance to performance, but much of the detail is going to change, which keeps it really fresh. So a recording is like a snapshot of one sort of version of the work, one iteration of it. In terms of like the technical aspect of like mic placement, yeah, you're right. Like where that microphone is placed in relation to the sound source, particularly like a snare drum, makes a big difference. So I recorded this a while back, but I think it was like a room stereo pair, single close mic on the top, and then a single close mic on the bottom, because the sound you're getting from the top of the drum, like what would be the playing side, is a lot of that feedback from the microphone, and then the bottom you're getting a lot of that snare sound, which is really integral to the piece. So like in a room, you would get the natural balance of it wherever that you would be seated. But in a recording situation, if I didn't put that mic on the bottom, it wouldn't get quite as noisy in the middle section and build to that sort of intense moment that I want to hear. So yeah, that's definitely a consideration in that microphone placement. I don't know. I'm kind of back and forth. Like I think there's an integral visual component to the thing. Like to see it really helps people who might not be into this kind of music, give them an entry point, because it's just fascinating to watch these microphones swing and see the performer make a motion and hear a change in the sound, and they can connect that, and it really helps them sort of identify with the piece, I think. But I also like it as just a sound recording, because it's like, how the heck are these sounds being made? Like, what is doing that? You know, is it just happening by itself, or is the performer doing something? And that adds like a level of sort of mystery or intrigue, I think, that's interesting to me as a listener.
Absolutely, yeah. So we've got your links going along there below.
Cool.
Yeah, I mean, is that the best place for people to go and have a listen to more of your work, or is there anywhere else that you've mentioned?
Yeah, that's probably. I'm pretty horrible about documentation and putting things online. But you'll see if you go to those websites. I mean, my personal website has a bio. The creating sound thing is just where you could buy recordings, CDs if you want them. But there's no sound samples up there. Someday, creating sound will be on Bandcamp. Someday soon. So look for us on there.
No, that's really cool. And there's some wonderful comments coming through.
Wow,
Andrew
cool.
Leslie Hooker, this piece is beautiful, great stuff. Mersbo and Mr. Reich would be most pleased, methinks. There we are, that'll do. Soundlands Cymru, love it already just from the title. Oh, well, there we are. Very well done.
Awesome.
What we've also got that popped up as well is we've got Elliot Hernandez's SoundCloud. It's been dropped in as a link there somewhere, I see. But yeah, so if people want to go back and have a look at that, then by all means do so. Yeah, has anybody got anything else they want to add to that before we move on? In which case, thank you so much, Ron. That's a really intriguing piece, and it's really nice to have sort of things going back to doing physical things with instruments, because we can all get very. I mean, we tend to think of electronic music, and we try not to think of it too much as a laptop-y, but it can be. So people swinging mics around and doing stuff. I think there's a lot to be said for that. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Ed. Thanks,
Absolutely.
Julie.
Thank you.
A lot of fun. All right.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
So that sort of brings us to a logical point. We've got another, I believe, 2 artists coming up. Yes, we have. We've got 2, which gives us a very, very just quick moment to say thank you very much to all the people who've been before. And if you are on all of the social things, please give them a like or a thumbs up or any of those things. Also, we have got a coffee.com account, which helps to basically pay for this wonderful virtual studio, which Charles is running, whereby you can literally go and buy us a coffee, or indeed put a bit of money in it, which goes towards literally just funding this virtual studio. Apart from that, all the rest of us doing everything for free. Artists are devoting their time and their pieces, and co-hosts and people in the background, and all our friends and families who let us out and let us do these things, So yeah, if you have got a chance to put something in there to keep it going, that'd be great. If you haven't, don't worry, just give people a thumbs up or a whatnot, or say something nice in the comments, because depending on what people are doing, that's equally as valuable. And yeah, well done to Rob, like and share, Right, that is that horribly awkward bit done and out the way, because it always makes me feel a bit weird. So next up, we have a track by Mike Parnell entitled Really Odd Times, which personally, I don't know about you, Julie, I think sums up about the last 18 months, really, or
I haven't
possibly
heard it
18
described in
years.
that way, but really odd times. It has an element of optimism to it that I do like.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a sort of understatement. So without further ado, Mike Parnell, Really Odd Times. Thank you very, very much, Mike. I don't know if you're with us in... there you are. Hello. We can't hear you. Are you still on mute? Oh, there we are.
Muted myself.
Oh, there we are. Congratulations. Yeah, that is a really intriguing piece. It feels like there's some sort of process unwinding and building within that. Would you care to explain what's going on, or?
I mean, it started with just loving the sound of that kind of omnichord, but also altered, modified, and just playing a kind of piece on it, and then sometime later doing something else against that piece, and then against it again. So like 3 layers, and then playing them all at once and thinking that actually there's a kind of potential kind of journey sort of feeling going on there, and then editing that down really, sort of sculpting it, selecting bits and pieces, but not really changing the sound too much.
No, because I found it a really sort of effective build in that there were times when I was quite intrigued, not quite knowing where it was going. But then when it got to the next bit, all of a sudden you kind of knew how you'd got there, and it sort of made sense, which was really quite engaging. Yeah, so thank you very much. Yeah, Julie.
Yeah, well, with obvious parallels to various flashbacks to different lockdowns, when you're trying to like juggle all these different parts of your life that have been thrust into your lap, and there's no one else to like take care of them for you or to help you. And also following on from the previous piece as well, when you knew that there were physical things creating those noises. I mean, this is obviously digital, but it was just incredible to imagine how all of these different layers of it were going simultaneously. I mean, of course, computers are magical, mystical, amazing things who can do millions of things at one time. But it was just such a beautiful thought to follow on from that very physical piece, to approach your piece very physically and just imagine all of the actions and synapses that were going on inside of a digital piece to keep all those layers going and almost go onto the edge, almost go off, and then be brought back together into almost a harmonious section before kind of warping out again. So it was really, and then just the disconnect sometimes between this really calming, the embers of a fire going this way and then slowly, like I like the really slow video with it, because it was very like that forced you to try to be calm, like you should just ease into it, like it would be okay, but you never knew, like it was always possible that the whole thing could just literally explode into flames at the end, but it didn't, so thank you.
It's good.
I trust you.
Thank you. I did think about originally I was thinking about doing a sort of burning bonfire, but it seemed that just the smouldering actually seemed to fit it better, just some kind of thing going on in the depths of it, just emitting these little streams of sort of stuff. So yeah.
No, I thought that was really effective, because it made a lot of those sort of slower processes and that sort of feel of things kind of come to the surface a lot more. I think just quite often we find that, especially as kind of primarily sound, or for me primarily as a sound person, I often find trying to put a video to something really problematic for things such as this, because it either kind of goes really well or it doesn't quite go, or some of it sometimes fits towards some of the stuff really well and some of it doesn't. But I think actually that worked really well to actually just bring to the fore some of the ideas underpinning the work. So no, I think it sits there really nicely, you know. And I like the train. I know it's very simple, but I do like the train.
It was kind of serendipitous. I knew there would be one along at some point, but It kind of fitted in the end, or I adjusted it slightly so that it fitted.
But no. So I mean, how did you do a lot of these different time things? Because it feels like it could be either incredibly well played or something quite in-depth automated going on. I'm just sort of intrigued.
Well, there is a kind of a sort of inbuilt part of it in the way the omnichord's modified. Some of the notes pulse. They have a kind of electronic-y pulse quality to them, but the pulse is in proportion to the actual note. So if you play another note, it will pulse at a different frequency, but related. You know, some octaves and such like. It'll do a related pulse. So I was kind of playing around with that in the initial track, just getting an idea that you could have a pulse and then you could change the note and the pulse would change, but it would be in a relation to the previous pulse. And then when you add another track over that, you start to get the oddness in that it doesn't actually necessarily have a time signature ever again. So it's kind of built in the machine. And I take the earlier point that I love to imagine what's going on when you press that contact or that button, all the little circuits, because it is a very analogy thing to produce that sound.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think there's been some wonderful comments coming in there. Martha, Hugh Williams. Hugh Williams seems to have a boot. Maybe that's beautiful. I'm not sure. David making clap. Okay. Rob's obviously having fun diving through things. Okay, really quite moving. There we are. So yeah. Oh, that was the one that I saw and was then feeling slightly like I didn't want to jump in and try and pronounce all of it. But yeah, so a lot of appreciation for it. Yeah, so I mean, is this sort of representative of your work, or I mean, by the look of it, there's quite a varied background, sort of literally in your background.
Yeah, I've originally come from a kind of Irish folk tradition. My mum's
right,
and plays a few things. But I've kind of gone off learning about some other cultures and musics and Arabic and West African. And but over the last year or so, I've been trying to kind of just pull together some things and getting more interested in the sounds that things make and what you can do with the sounds. So I'll put some links into what I do, but there's experimental stuff, there's more traditional stuff, there's bits of stuff that has a bit of both in. I'm quite into the mbira, so I've been learning mbira for quite some years, Zimbabwean instrument. And so I'm doing quite a lot with that at the moment on Twitch, sort of live streaming things. So yeah, trying to keep lots of things going to keep me interested.
Absolutely. Oh, that's yeah. I mean, it's really, really nice sort of getting to see some of your work, and it's yeah, really quite engaging to sort of see how it progresses, and sort of I want to go and find out more now. So that's
yeah, me too.
can't say better than that. So yeah, when you get a second, if you chuck it in our there's our private chat box down the side. If you put a few links in there, and I'm sure Rob will do the honours in sticking them along the stream for people. And yeah, Mike, thank you so much. That was a real pleasure.
Thanks for putting me on. I appreciate that.
Oh no, it's cool. Thank you for coming forward and and giving us the work. So brilliant. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you.
So yeah, it's a wonderful and varied evening.
It's been such a ride. This is
it has. There's been sort of all sorts of links that you could pull from one work to the other, and I find it really sort of intriguing and thematic, which, as usual, is slightly thought through and also slightly at the whim of the gods. But coming up, we have a final track by Curtis Anderson entitled Cloud Cover. So, yeah, please enjoy that. And then we'll have a natter with Curtis afterwards and, yeah, get to see what his work is about and where he's coming from, because he's been really patiently sat in the wings there, I believe, with a Moog sat next to him. I'm not sure, I can't quite see. But yeah, without further ado, Cloud Cover. Thank you very much, Curtis, and welcome. That's a really intriguing and lovely piece. It's
Thanks, yeah,
yeah. I mean, it kind of goes to show that within one's own practice, you can be doing experimental things and messing about with all sorts of tech without necessarily having to kind of do completely outlandish things and all that. So it's kind of really nice to see. I mean, but Jeff, where were you coming from in terms of making that?
It's interesting when you say like using music technology, not having to go all out. This is a Moog, as you quite rightly mentioned before, and I don't use it probably as much as I should. I do a lot more field recordings like these days to get that sort of sound. I'm a massive fan of sort of electronic dance music and techno and trance and all those sorts of records. But I think with this kind of the music that you just heard there is it's trying to get back to those early records that I heard. Like a lot of dance music these days feels very close. It's really in your face, and the transients I find them very harsh. I much prefer those early techno records where the mixes and the sounds were still finding their way, and there was a softness to them. Maybe because of the sampling processes that were being used at the time, or I'm not sure, but certainly these days when you go clubbing, these sound systems are huge, and they replicate these really harsh transients, which I guess I'm trying to find my way back to those early records with this sort of music, but sort of steering away from using synths as much. Finding natural rhythms and nature and with field recordings and trying to bring them out in the studio. I think that's what I'm trying to do with this sort of work. And yeah, just to make it a bit softer, I think, a bit more earthy, trying to bring like earthiness to the to this music, and making it quite dreamlike as well. I think, almost trying to capture the feeling of the music, like standing still, And I read this great line in this book I was reading recently about hauntology, and that as a genre of music, and the music feeling like it was dreaming of itself. And I thought that's what a great, like.
Yeah, I've not heard of that one. Yeah,
I love that line. It's a book like that, and it's just got this one line, and it just captured, I think, what I was trying to do when I'm in the middle of a field, waiting for a moment, and that's what I'm doing a lot of the time. Waiting for the landscape to give you something, and then sort of running with it in the studio. But as you said there again at the beginning, not going crazy with all the music tech stuff, just capturing a moment and then sort of running with it and not processing it too much, that you sort of just wring all of the what was unique or what was special about that moment out of it, because it's so easy done. It's so easy to keep on because it's computers now that it's infinite, I can keep going and processing for as long as I want, and then you end up with just a fragment of what it was that made whatever I captured at the time special, so yeah, I think that's
absolutely.
Piece,
Yeah.
Julie, I was thinking a lot about a lot of the things you said, which I was excited about that, about perception and our place on Earth, and just like looking up. We were always looking up because we're always under, and what that means to be perceiving the world in that way. And I just finished a book that had a lot of references to the grammar of indigenous languages. and that a lot of the Native American languages lacked any nouns whatsoever.
Right.
That it wasn't a cloud, but that's not a noun, that's a verb. It's clouding. It's not a hill, it's hilling. It's always in the process of being a cloud. It's always in the process of being a hill. And there are no truly inanimate objects. They're always in relation to themselves and their environment around them, reacting and being perceived by other things. And I really was like reliving all the parts of that book that I loved the most in watching and listening to your piece, and being like grounded and happy with your position, and appreciating the soundscape, the earthscape, the lifescape around you, and letting it come directly. So it was a really pleasurable, immersive experience, but also I felt like, I'm good. I'm good in the scale that I am, in the type of place that I am, in the sky that I'm seeing right now. And I thought in the beginning that it was going to be like, oh, I'm going to feel transported, like I'm flying in the clouds. And I didn't fly away at all. And that felt really grounded and satisfying, that I was able to appreciate the clouds from where I was.
That's fantastic. Yeah. I think going back to tribes and that sort of imagery, I read a lot of Terence McKenna when I was younger, and just the way he describes sort of shamans and ritual and just being out in the open and trying to capture that and bring that into the studio as well to make something that's, I guess, maybe on the verge of feeling like hallucinogenic, with all these little, intricate sounds going on, and immersive. Yeah, I mean, that's another thing that I'm really trying to bring out as well. And I think that's, again, a bit lost in what I hear these days. As I said, everything's compressed and mastered, and it's, it feels really close, and the depth. I'm obsessed with depth at the moment in recording and digital recording, and I think being out and making field recordings, there's a natural depth there already. I'm not having to replicate that with 100 different reverbs or delays or EQs, and rolling off the high frequencies to push it back in the mix. There's already a depth there of the natural world, which is I guess it's like a springboard, to build around. And then there's, as I said, rhythms there as well, which are captures, and then working around those things as well. But yeah, certainly the reading like Terence McKenna in my early teens and stuff is a big influence in this sort of the tracks that I'm making now, and just something hypnotic. I'm really,
absolutely,
techno records, the ones that don't appear to do a lot, but there's so much going on there. There's so much movement in a techno record. It's essentially what a kick drum and a snare and a hi-hat and a bass line going, but there's so much movement between those things. There's modulation in the bass line, and there's frequency modulation in the kick drum, and then there's the groove that you've got to, there's a lot that goes into the groove to make that sit right.
While you're in the process of talking about the nuts and bolts of how you put stuff together, I'm really intrigued as to how you managed to pull the trick of having these field recordings worked into this. Which, I mean, for me, field recordings tend to feel, by their nature, quite linear, and yet you've somehow managed to pull the trick of making those feel like part of a really quite cyclical work. I mean, it's not exactly 8 bar, 16 bar, 32 bar, but it's kind of, it's near that, but you've actually done it in a way that doesn't feel like, okay, and there's the clonk as the loop comes round. I mean,
right. Yeah.
How have you managed to achieve that?
I guess the first thing I do with any field recording is bring it into Ableton and then keep processing it and I keep every version of that original field recording, but I tend to chuck as many ideas as I can into Ableton, so I've got at least 30 to 40 tracks of MIDI or audio, and then I almost construct it like a dance, electronic dance music record, and then I just start taking parts away until it doesn't feel, as you say, like every 8 bars something's coming in. I much prefer to work in 32 bars and then bring in things that feel natural. There's so many templates these days to build a dance track or a techno record, and they feel very mechanical. Trying to move away from that, and I think field recording is a perfect way to get away from that because things happen, there's no control over that. And again, trying to bring that into the studio and into Ableton, it takes a lot of work.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of processing to begin with, and then you could have a field. The length of my field recordings are normally around 10 minutes, and then I can take milliseconds out of there, and then copy and paste that, and maybe put them, use them in Reactor or Sampler or Simpler, and just work on very, very small fragments of audio, and then try to drag them out into something and find rhythms and that will work with other parts of the longer version of the field recording. And I try, when I'm doing it, I'm trying to, I guess I'm trying to not work as Ableton would like to. I'm trying to move that, that kick drum, that what appears to be a kick drum on that track, isn't it? I never put any sort of kick drum in there. It's some sort of anomaly in the low end that just happened after processing field recordings. I've got no idea where that came from. It could be me hitting a mic with my finger or something, or I've got XLRs around my shoulders, and it could be me like hitting the unit with. I've got no idea, but it's as much happy accidents in that respect,
Yeah.
And running with them as well. And I think that's another big factor, is just running with an idea and not being, okay, well, that's 8 bars and this is 32 bars now, and it's got to go into this or break or do that. It's just, just trying to move away from that completely.
Yeah. No.
Again, that's another, it's another part of electronic dance music that I think is, it's like you get the 32 bars intro and then the 32 bar beginning. There's this big breakdown, and then it, just trying to move away from that completely. So that's the plan anyway.
I mean, one final question coming from me, or more from Charles and Rob in the background, is is the video stuff yours with the Astro and all the stars thing? Is that yours, or is that something you've kind of bought in and edited? Or
they're all clips, and I'm no expert when it comes to video editing or anything like that. But
no, I think it was basically going to be one of those, oh my goodness, if that is yours, that deserves a mention as well sort of moment.
It's just sort of stock images, and then I just sort of splice them together in Ableton along with the final bounce of the audio underneath.
No, it works really well. It definitely fits with the feel of what that's doing. So
thanks.
Cool. Julie, anything you want to add or ask whilst we're all still nattering?
No, that was amazing. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me on.
It's great, thank you. And there's some really nice messages going through there. And equally, if anybody wants to go and have a listen to more of Curtis's work, it's going along the bottom, one way or the other. I can't really quite point because everything's back to front. Somewhere down there. And on the strength of that, Curtis, thank you so much.
Thanks very much. Thanks again.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you for coming, and thanks for great
Curtis.
piece. So that kind of brings us to the end of today. A couple of really quick things. Firstly, we've got the deep dive episode, which is going to be out on the 15th, which hopefully we've been joined by Joe Thomas, who is a composer who's been or grew up around North Wales and is now, I believe, working in London, doing lots of exciting electroacoustic work, and really interesting person. Somebody who I've sort of had various dealings with over the decades now, and is somebody whose work I really personally enjoy and is very interesting to speak to. We also have the fact that the end of this event brings us to the end of 5 years of Oscilloscope. We've survived 5 years, and no one's told us to go away and stop making noise. So that's really cool. Yeah, it's slightly more low-key than I think it could otherwise been were it not for events and global pandemics and all of those things.
And there might have been cake.
And there might have been cake, yeah, you know. But I mean, that just sort of leads me to say thank you so much to so many people over those years. I'm not going to start naming people because I will inevitably miss somebody out. But hopefully you are listening and know who you are. Or indeed, even if you're not listening, you might know who you are. So that's great. I mean, that for artists and stuff involved, we've got a Zoom sort of chill out, grab a glass of wine, possibly a bit of cake if you've got one. And indeed, any of the gang who've done stuff over the years, if you want to send me a message and we can give you the Zoom to go and come and join us in a minute, then you're more than welcome. It leaves me to say thank you very much to the artists for this evening. We have Johnny Benchish, Instant Places, I should say. Instant Places, which is Laura and Ian. We have Elliot Hernandez, we have Ron Coulter, we have Mike Farnell and Curtis Anderson, who you have just heard. We also have Julie Upmar, who's there and has done a sterling job at staying awake. You know, after an amazing long weekend of noise and wonderfulness and cake. And Rob's is that a birthday cake from Rob? I believe it might well be. Cool.
Yeah, well done, everyone. Thank you for having me back, and that was so super enjoyable. Thank you very much.
It really was.
No potential for dozing off on that one.
No. And thank you very much to Charles and Rob in the background who have been trying to keep us in one piece and keep us on track and keep us roughly to time. There's the coffee.com thing going along the bottom as well. And given that we're all trying to aim for trying to finish almost exactly at 8:30, and I haggled Charles down to go, can we have it plus or minus 5 minutes to get prizes? It's now 8:35, so I think we need to stop there. Thank you very, very much, everybody. Night, take care. No star. Bye.
No star, pawb.